back to my succulent shop. Today we are going to be learning a little bit about how to care for succulents properly. I unfortunately have a couple from my own collection that aren't doing so well, so they could use some work. And so I thought we'd put on a little lesson today for that. And I actually have examples of some that are not doing well at all, some that are dead, and some that are doing really well. So we can see all of those. And I also have a little guidebook here. It's actually the Idiot's Guide, as easy as it gets, to succulents, which, as you can see, I've looked through a little bit before, but we're gonna go through it today. And on the cover here it says everything you need to select, pair, and care for succulents. Profiles of 100 easy varieties with gorgeous color photos, and 12 crafty wreath, terrarium, bouquet, and other projects. So yeah, we're gonna go through this a little bit, and I'm gonna show you guys again some examples, what we're gonna do about it, and we'll go from there. So first of all, let's start out at the table of contents. Part 1 is just getting to know succulents, and while that's important, I'm really interested in part 2, which is succulent care. So we'll probably just skim through part 1 really quick and then go on to part 2, which is kind of like what we're talking about today. So, getting to know succulents. I actually have this one of these. I don't have it with me at the moment for a little show and tell / amateur lesson in succulent care, but I do have one. Okay, so like I said, we'll probably just skim through this mostly, but why are succulents so popular? Unique shapes and striking colors. Yes, definitely. So it's winter right now, and a lot of succulents not only are dormant in winter, but since winter brings low light, shorter days, they tend to lose a lot of their color. But this one's one of my favorites. It's called an Echeveria lolita. I can't say that word. I've never been able to. But so right now you can see it's kind of like greenish, almost greenish looking. In the middle, it started to bloom a little bit more as I've decided to turn up my grow light and have it be on a little bit longer, so I feel like that's helping. But in the summer, this will be, once it's outside, it will be like white and purple, like it's so pretty. But sadly, they tend to lose their striking colors in the dormant months, which, I mean, makes sense, but it's a shame nevertheless. Easy to grow. I would contest with that, actually. I don't think they're necessarily easy to grow, maybe in the sense that you don't necessarily have to water them a lot, but they do require a lot of light, and if you water them too much, that gets bad really quick. So drought tolerant, yes, that's true. You can just never water them and they're pretty much fine. And easy to propagate. That's the reason that I like succulents the most. It's literally like, okay, so I've got this plant here. I could take, this is a burrow tail or a donkey tail. All I have to do is take off one of these leaves, and I mean, not every single leaf will do it, but there's a pretty good chance you place it on some dirt and a whole new little baby will grow from just a leaf, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so like I said, we're gonna skip through this a little bit, what you can do with succulents. I mean, kind of the same with all types of plants. I guess you can, you know, make them into a bouquet or a boutonniere, whatever those things are called. I don't know. But okay, succulent care. This is what we want. So let's see here what this has to say. Okay, so succulent care. Succulents are great plants for beginners, but they'll survive much longer if you know how to take care of them. Surprise there. One of the common misconceptions about succulents is that they are hard to kill. It is true, many of them can tolerate some neglect and will likely thrive better with less attention. However, many people quickly kill off their succulent collection by giving them too much love and water. This is exactly what I did or have done with about like 90% of the succulents that I've killed off. Either too much water or thinking that they can handle more cold than they can. So, I gotta stop messing with this one here. We'll get to that. Let's see. This section covers the basics for growing healthy succulents. You'll also discover some of the common problems succulent growers face and how to avoid them. Soon, you'll be on your way to a beautiful succulent garden. All right, so let's figure this out. So, a lot of this stuff is much easier said than done. It's quite easy to read about it. It's a whole nother thing to put it into practice. So this first section talks about how to water succulents. So it says, watering succulents is the most important aspect of care, especially when you're first starting out. Using the right watering methods is key to keeping your succulents happy and healthy. I agree wholeheartedly. So if I were to, of course, this is not, I'm not qualified to write the idiot's manual to succulent care, but if I were to give you a #1 tip for owning a succulent is make sure that you plant it in a pot that has a drainage hole, because that's like literally the easiest way to kill it is when the water can't drain and the roots get root rot so easily. But okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's literally point #1 here. Use a drainage hole in well-draining soil. These watering instructions assume that you have a drainage hole in your pot and well-draining soil. If you don't have a draining hole and well-draining soil, it doesn't matter how careful you are about watering, your plants will eventually die because the soil won't dry out completely. Succulents do not like to sit in wet soil, and without a drainage hole, you'll end up with wet soil around the roots that won't dry out. I also have this same problem with planters that are deeper. So, for example, I've got this one here. These poor guys aren't doing so well. So, this is a whole mix of plants, so it's kind of difficult to keep them all happy at the same time. These are a string of dolphins, and I don't know if you can see, but they're a bit crunchy in some places. Oh wow, look. Actually, they're all broken off, which is okay. These, I have other string of dolphins and they do this. They do this to avoid damage to the rest of the plant. So, if you can see the end here, the ends of these look like they're kind of wilted away or rotted. These probably were in too much water at one point, and so they basically cut themselves off from the main root, and now they're drying out because they are disconnected from the main root. So here, that's why I 100% agree with the statement here that I think it's a false idea that succulents are hard to kill. They're actually pretty easy to kill because if you don't water them very much, they'll probably be okay, but you have to water them the exact right amount for them to ever look really colorful and pretty and all of that. But if it's so easy to water them too much and kill them, it's so easy. Like, they'll be dried out and you'll think there'll be a whole bunch. So I'll show you a different example. These are a string of dolphins. We're gonna plant these elsewhere, but I wanted to save this. This is an example of a problem plant that I'm dealing with this winter. It was doing very well outside. By the way, we're in zone 6A here, so definitely not desert-like habitat, but actually, as I look out the window, I can see the snow falling. So, but that's a problem with having different succulents of different types together. So what I was just saying with the string of dolphins, see, these are dried out leaves. These are this is an aloe plant, and the reason I've got these up here is because at one point he got too much water, and so his stem here started to get a little bit of rot. I don't know if you can see it very well, but the stem here started to get a little bit of rot. Maybe if I take this out, right here, this is the stem, and so I propped it up like this so that it could get air, because it's very important for succulents. Also, as you water them, that they not only that they don't sit in wet soil, but that they don't sit on top of wet soil. Like, their stem and everything will rot if they have to. I mean, if you think about it from a scientific perspective, these are desert plants, so they are used to being in drought-like climates where they might have to go a long time, weeks, month or more, without water at all. So I have to be very careful where I live in USDA zone 6A, especially since this past summer, it's a little part of my string of pearls that's dead. This past summer, we basically had a drought here, and I didn't really get any water, and the succulents loved it, but my vegetables hated it. But the year before was the exact opposite, and a lot of my succulents got, because I take them outside during the summer, they got too much water and died. So it's a toss-up, but this is one of my favorite succulents. I've only managed to keep it alive. It's never gotten bigger or smaller. It's just stayed this size, which I guess is better than dying. But this is called a string of pearls. It's similar but different to the string of dolphins. This string of dolphins is very unhealthy, so this is a bad example. But the reason it's called a string of dolphins is because when they're healthy, they literally look like little dolphins, like hopping off of the stem, so it's kind of cool. But this guy, I can tell, is doing much better, because not only has his stem strengthened up completely, but now there's two little babies popping out from underneath him. Her, I guess. Well, it really doesn't matter with plants, but really quickly, just to show you, this is why it's super important. And again, I disagree with the notion that it's not easy to kill succulents, because if you don't keep an eye on them, they are very easy to kill. So this guy that I've got propped up like this, these are all his babies, or her babies, I guess. These were underneath of the sagging stem that was starting to rot, but it's because the plant was putting so much resources into trying to grow these new babies. So I found them just in the nick of time, they tend to pop up really quickly, and then once they do, they'll grow like out of nowhere. Like you won't you'll see a baby one day, and then it's like almost the size of the parent plant like a week and a half later. It's weird with some species, not all. But so yeah, these three are babies of this guy. They don't look like it at the moment, but they're just starting to get the little like hairy like weird texture. So it's kind of cute because they're literally just like babies of him. And he's old now. I've had this is one of my very first succulents. I'm very happy that I was able to like, I don't know that he'll ever be able to stand on his own again, at least not until the summertime, because right now he's dormant. He's not going to be moving too much, but he's not dead. He's doing well still. There's still new growth in the top here, which is also super important when dealing with succulents. You want to make sure that you can see new growth when trying to diagnose whether they're doing well or not. So anyways, I've gotten way off the topic of my little book here, but put the babies here. And so yeah, this is another very important aspect of watering your succulents correctly, is to soak them thoroughly and water at the roots. So I've got here just this little can of or little plastic water bottle, and this is actually designed specifically for succulents. Actually, we'll do this one because this is a really good example. Number one, so this one fills the top of its pot. If I reach under here, there'll be some dead leaves. I touch the soil, it's bone dry, which is good. You don't want to water your succulents when you can feel any sort of moisture on the soil already, because they will rot. So this one's bone dry, literally, like there's dust, which that's exactly what we want. That means that it's ready for another water. But what this book is saying is when you do water it, you want to soak it thoroughly, and you want to water at the root. So what we mean by that is, in the desert, sometimes, you know, it goes weeks without raining, but then it's gonna like pour rain, maybe, hopefully. That's what these plants prefer, either way. They like to dry out completely, and then you water them, like completely soak their soil, and then wait another, in the summer, it's much quicker. It usually only needs to be a week, if not less. But in the winter, at least where I live, again, in Zone 6A, US Zone 6A, USDA Zone 6A, excuse me, they don't need watered but maybe once a month during the winter, maybe a little bit more, twice a month, once every 3 weeks, 3 weeks would probably be better. But so what I'll do is I'll make sure that I have this little pointer down right at the bottom of the root, or right at the base of the plant, and so there's water coming out the bottom. That means that it has been sufficiently watered. So that's what we mean by soak through. Number one, we've got here well-draining soil, which is very important. That was part of step one, that you plant your succulents in well-draining soil, because if you use like regular potting soil, they will die. Maybe not immediately, but they will eventually. That soil holds too much water, and it's not a good environment whatsoever for the succulent roots. They will succumb to root rot at some point. So, like I just showed you, we wait until the succulents, the soil around it's totally like bone dry. Then I plant 90% of my succulents in terracotta pots with drainage holes at the bottom. This one's got one here. Terracotta because it will absorb extra water. So let's say you do water your succulent too much, the terracotta pot will help take up that extra water from the soil, so the roots aren't just sitting in like soggy, wet soil, which is what will kill it. And side note off of that, the really sad thing about your succulents getting root rot is that you won't really notice until it's too late. You won't notice that it's got root rot until you see like the bottom very base of it starting to turn brown, and at that point your only hope is to kind of amputate it, and that's a whole other topic. But so number one definitely tip out of anything else is to use well draining soil in a terracotta pot with a drainage hole, at least in a pot with a drainage hole. So like not all of mine, well, they pretty much all are terracotta, but some of them are glazed, and the glazed ones don't really pull in the water like the regular ones do. But especially if you're beginning, terracotta makes it much easier, because I am super prone to overwatering my succulents, and that helps me to not lose as many. But okay, got way off on a tangent there. Another important, like I said too, it's really important to water them at the root or at the base of the plant, because not only do I'll go back to this one here, not only do the roots rot very quickly, but these petals are quite sensitive, especially to moisture, because again, they're desert plants. And so if you've got water puddled resting if you've got water puddled up on the petals, like resting, not only can it like create some like it will magnify the light and you'll get like sunburn spots, or it'll create like rot in that spot. Like it's not good either way. So they do recommend, if you are using like cutlets for some sort of like wreath or something like that, you can use a misting. I don't have a little misting bottle right here with me right now, but you can do that for cutlets, or plants that are just like cut off at the stem, not ones that are planted. But for planted, grounded, rooted flowers, succulent flowers, it's best to water them like right at the base of the plant, like right near the root, so the root can suck all the water up immediately, and then it will be happy for a week or more. So anyways, yeah, here they say about misting. Many people suggest misting succulents with water. While this works on a short-term basis, it doesn't promote good root growth. Misting can work well to keep temporary arrangements looking fresh longer, but isn't recommended for arrangements you intend to keep a long time. Yeah, so exactly what I just said. If you like made a succulent wreath or something like that, or if you're trying to propagate, misting is really good for that too. But now this section says when to water succulents. While succulents are known for being drought tolerant, there is a wide range of water needs within the group. It may take some time for you to refine your watering schedule. Yes, so I've had to learn through a huge trial and error type of experiments when to water and when not to. Usually if I'm torn between watering and not watering, don't water, because your plant will recover much quicker, your succulent plant will recover much quicker from a drought or underwatering than overwatering. They will not tolerate overwatering. They will die immediately. So just, if you're ever in doubt, don't water it. And again, they'll recover from that quickly. They will not recover from being overwatered. Oh my gosh, I swear I did not see this, but it says, when in doubt, don't water, right here. If you're worried about how frequently you are watering your succulents, Err on the side of underwatering. It is much easier to give a plant more water than to save a plant that has rotted from overwatering. I know this because I have killed so many plants from overwatering. You guys, dozens. So, especially when growing indoors, it can be hard to know how often to water. If you're watering more than once a week and your plant isn't looking good, cut back on watering. It does take some trial and error to get on a regular schedule. Most people tend to overwater and aren't able to save their plants by the time they realize their mistake. Yes, because once they start to rot, it spreads so quickly through the plant and it takes over. It starts in the root system, so that's how your plant gets nutrients, that's how it grows bigger, that's how it remains strong. So when your root system is rotted, your plant on top is kind of screwed, and you may not be able to see it at first, but it's devastating. So, it also says in here, pay attention to the season. Succulents go through a period of dormancy during which they stop growing or their growing slows down considerably. During dormancy, they don't need much water, while in their active growing season, however, they like to be watered regularly. So, yeah, that's kind of common sense. That's kind of, a lot of plants have, dormant seasons and growing seasons, so. Okay, so on to not my favorite, my most suffered from issue, too much water. So this section is called Identifying Watering Problems, and it says, overwatering is much more common than not watering enough, but both can be problematic for your plants. Here's what to look for if you suspect your succulent is getting too much water or not enough. So, underwatering is much easier to see. We can see that from, well, I showed you earlier the string of dolphins. I'll show you two. I've got a bunch that are overwatered. Well, not a bunch, but I'll show you some examples after we're done going through this. But too much water. The early signs and symptoms of overwatering can be difficult to distinguish from underwatering. One of the first signs is soft, wrinkled leaves. They'll feel similar to your fingers or toes after they've been in water for too long. So yeah, they get wrinkly, and let me see. I know I've got some with me. So, not a lot of my succulents are overwatered at this point because I have learned through trial and error how not to do that. But let's take out this guy. Hold on really quickly. Oh wait, it popped off because he's rotten. So this is a really good example. This back, this is for later. This is a very good example of what a leaf will look like when it's rotten. So this should be green, or at least it's turned transparent, number one. It's squishy. I don't know how well you can see it. It matches my nails because I painted my nails for my football team, which are the Green Bay Packers, by the way, and they won yesterday, so I'm happy. But anyways, it's squishy, and they turn transparent like this. This is an example of overwatering. So this is just one that I had just like right near me because this actually came off of a propagation, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, but this is exactly what they'll look like on your plant if you've overwatered it. And another thing is, I'm pretty sure this one's not overwatered, but if it is, it will provide a good example. So when your plant's overwatered, see the leaves look nice and like thick, I guess you could say. But when it's overwatered, like I showed you with this one, it'll start to turn yellow and like transparent. See, this plant is healthy. I can tell because when I touch the leaves, see, they don't fall off. If this plant was overwatered, when I touch the leaves like this, they would fall off immediately because they're so packed with water, like they've got too much water in them. They're so thick, full of water, that just even the slightest touch will cause them to fall off. But this succulent I probably haven't watered in a month. This one started out about the size of maybe like this little part right here in my hand. But the thing about succulents is the reason you don't need to water them, their leaves, it's called succulent because they're succulent and that they hold water, they hold all their water in their leaves. So the leaves look like, they're like big and squishy, like fat looking, because that's where the plant holds all of its water. So again, with succulents, it's a very delicate balance of making sure that they have enough water. Oh look, see, I touched it and that one fell off. This isn't overwatered, this is just kind of a baby. But even the cool thing about this part of the plant, is a baby. The cool part about this is that this leaf just fell off completely intact. So now I can place this on soil and it will start to grow a whole new plant of one of these. So, yeah. Put that back in. And then underwatering is the next issue that we've got here. So I've also brought an example of underwatering. So this plant was doing so well this summer, and I'm really disappointed in how it's doing now. Move some of this out of the way so that everybody can see. Move my book so it doesn't get all dirty. Okay, so this plant is called a blue chalkstick. I don't remember the scientific name, but as you can see down here, there's little leaves breaking off, and they're obviously dried out leaves of these chalk sticks. This isn't necessarily an underwatered plant right here. It's very normal for the leaves on the bottom to dry out like this and fall off. It actually is healthy for the plant because they need aeration around their root base, or around the plant base, to avoid rot again. So this plant is kind of a weird mixture though, because it's got some roots, it's got some leaves that are squishy. So this leaf looks like it's gotten too much water. You see how it's like literally like squishy, but there's a lot of them that are dried out. That's just a sign that the last time that I watered it, I didn't water it very evenly. I probably watered only one side, and then the other side didn't get very much water, which is a rookie mistake. But another thing, I don't know if you guys can tell, this is a little bit off topic, but when I first moved these down or inside my house for the winter, they started to spread out, which that's what succulents do when they need more water. So, or when they need more light, I mean. And so you can tell, I've been leaving my grow lights on longer, you can tell that they're starting to get thicker on the top here. Like, see how like sparse these ones are? And then up on top, they're starting to get much thicker. That's because I've been leaving my grow lights on longer, which they obviously are appreciating, so I will continue to do so. But to show you an example of an underwatered plant, here's an underwatered plant that has died. Yeah. It used to be, I don't even actually know what it was, but it is dead now. This is also an example. This is more of a show type of pot, I guess, because this doesn't necessarily work so well with these getting watered. These are about dead. As you can see, as soon as I touch them, all the dry stuff falls off. They're pretty, I tried to just pull it out a little bit. They're pretty rooted in there though. So I wonder if maybe I just show some special attention. I wish you guys could see this because it's super tiny, but they're literally like a super little tiny baby right there. So it's not dead, it's just underwatered. And we can tell that because as soon as I touch it, its leaves are like crumbling into dust. This one actually seems to be doing okay. Another sign of underwatering is aerial roots. So this is hard to see, these aerial roots. I'll show you a different example. So this is a calancho plant right here. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's how I pronounce it. So if you guys can see all of these like protruding off of the plant, these are aerial roots. That's the plant basically like searching for more water, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but guys next to them, the string of dolphins were getting too much water and rotted. These ones aren't getting enough, so you can see how, especially if you have a succulent arrangement, it can get difficult to keep everybody happy. It's much easier to have them each in their own pots, but they're not as pretty that way, and they're more of a pain to take care of as well. See, these ones are doing well, but a lot of these can be hanging plants, but since I've got this middle part here that's so sparse looking because a lot of the summer blooming, see this one's gotten a little bit too much water, there's leaves falling off it left and right. Another thing you can do too when you see that there's the leaves falling off of it is pull leaves off. Like you see how easy these are coming off. If I just touch them, they fall off. That's because this has gotten too much water. Oh wow, it's actually about to rot off. So I'm glad we found this. One of the things you can do, take off a lot of these leaves. These leaves are holding a lot of the water there's too much of it. So there's a good chance that these leaves with extra water, look at how many we've got here. This is another example of a rotted one. I don't know if you can tell, but it's completely transparent and squishy. It's rotten. But all of these are potentially new plants. So I've got a bunch of these trays of propagations. Basically, I'll just lay a bunch of leaves like these that we just got on some soil, and they start to grow plants. Like got this one. Wow, this one's big. Not all of them do. As you can see, there's some leaves in here that didn't necessarily take off, that are rotten, like this. This isn't necessarily doing too well, but not every single leaf is gonna propagate. I will say though that definitely the majority of them do, in my opinion, or from my experience, as long as you keep them on wet soil. So, anyways, again, we got off on a bit of a tangent here. I'm gonna put these just down here for now, and clean up our mess a little bit. Okay, so that's not enough water. Okay, so the next component, which we've already talked about a little bit, but having the right type of soil, which I can't stress enough, again, is literally so important with succulents. So what they say here is succulents don't like to sit in wet soil. We went through that. They like water to drain out quickly, keeping the roots mostly dry. An ideal soil will include both organic and rock components. The organic component provides nutrients for the succulents, and the rock component provides stability and prevents the soil from breaking down completely. Ideally, the soil components will retain water but allows for great drainage. Coconut coir and diatomaceous earth, both meet this standard. Coconut coir comes from the husks of coconuts, blah blah blah. So basically, long story short, regular just potting flower garden soil will not work for succulents. It holds way too much moisture. So I actually make a bit of, like, I make my own. If I have the resources, I will buy my own succulent, so like pre-packaged. It's called Bonsai Jack. This video is not sponsored, but I will link it in the description if anybody's interested. That soil works amazingly for succulents. It's got the organic matter and the rocks and perlite and other things that succulents will thrive in, but that stuff is a little bit pricey. So in a pinch, I'll just get, I don't have any with me right now, like a bag of it, but it's the Miracle-Gro cactus and palm soil, and I've got just a sample of it here because I've got a few things to plant. So, but basically it's like they were just saying, the cactus, the Miracle-Gro like cactus and palm soil is it's like a dry soil that's got a lot of that organic material, but I still think that even their cactus soil retains too much water, so I buy my own perlite. You can get it really cheap, like Home Depot or whatever. That's what these like white, it almost feels like styrofoam. I'll add a bunch of perlite to it, and any like tiny pebbles or rocks or gravel type mixture that I have also, just to add to the drainage level. Also, like I did with this one, putting tiny rocks on top of your plant will really help, because obviously the water is not going to sit on these rocks, it's going to flow right through them, and that keeps your succulent up, never sitting in water, which for the base stem of the plant is really good, because it is immediately detrimental if they're sitting in water. So that's just an example of some soil. But this section is just talking a little bit about more of what I just said, mixing up your own soil. So sun exposure. Now, succulents, obviously, again, desert plants need quite a bit of sun exposure, And here where I live in the winter, I don't get a whole lot of that. So I brought an example. Let's fix the camera real quick. This is not my full setup, but this is just one of my portable ones of what I use to keep them happy during the winter. So these are just the like LED full spectrum plant lights. I think I got this one from Amazon. I'll try to find the exact link for it, but it is absolutely essential if you're going to have plants such as succulents or cactuses, plants that are typically supposed to be in a desert environment. You're going to have them like where I live, where it's snowing half of the year, or at least cold half of the year. It's absolutely essential if you want your plants to look okay. So these are just, this is just one of my to-go, I guess, lights. I used to have much less plants than I do. Now I have actually one that hangs from the ceiling, but I want to give you an example of some plants that are stretching for more light. So okay, so when succulents aren't getting enough light, they will stretch out. And what I mean by that is instead of remaining as a rosette, a compacted, on the ground, kind of like this one is. I keep showing this one because it's a good example. Actually, hold on. This is a baby, but as you can see, I actually don't know if you can see, but it came up off the ground a little bit. Let me fix this light really quick. It's a little bright. So it came up off the ground about this much, and then it started growing outward. So when succulents are happy, they'll grow outward and not upward. I'm going to show you some pretty extreme examples of stretching right here. So there's actually a couple different examples just in this one alone, but the most prominent one, as you can see, is this. This guy is stretching so far for more light. He clearly is not happy with the amount of light that he's getting. So he's not only giving up like leaf integrity for it, because all of his leaves aren't doing so hot either, but he's still stretching really far. And at the top, I don't know if you can see, he's starting to like get fat again. So it looks like he finally reached a point. I've got this one in a windowsill. It looks like he's reached a point finally where he's happy with the amount of light he's getting. But up until now, you can see how much space there is between each of these leaves. It's not supposed to look like that. And the same thing with these guys. These are supposed to be flat, like the last one I showed you, like this. This one's flat on the pot. It's not. It doesn't grow up at all. It just grows out. These are supposed to be the same way, but as you can see, they're stretching a little bit. They weren't getting enough light for a while, and that's why when you see these big stretched out stems with like the leaves are really interspersed between, that's what's happening, is they're not getting enough light and they're stretching. So here's the example from the book right here. That's a pretty extreme example. I have some like that, but not with me at this exact second. This is another example. This is the same type of succulent. It's doing the same thing. Clearly neither of them are happy in their current environment, so I'll probably put these two together, these two ones that are stretching, and move them together under a grow light, a more intense grow light, so that hopefully they will be happy with their amount of light after that. But alright. And then to not to wrap up, but another thing I wanted to go over really quick is this is my current plant graveyard. So these two are the same as the ones that I just showed you that have some serious issues with stretching. So these two will also probably go, if I can save them, with the other two that I was just talking about replanting. This guy isn't looking too good, but he has new growth right at the very end. I want it to focus on this. Right at the very end here. That's a new flower. That means that this guy isn't dead. But you would like to really see something that is dead. This is my very first orchid. This is all that is left of her. So this part is all rotted. This is rotted. The leaf is rotted here. I'm 99% sure there's no saving this one at this point. This looks alive, but even these roots right here are completely rotted. And so I haven't thrown it away yet, but sad orchid. And then I'll give you my, I'll show you guys my happy orchid too. This is my happy orchid. As you can see, this one's doing much better. Its roots are green and pretty and don't look like this, but this one hasn't bloomed in quite a while, but it's growing new leaves, and the leaves are shiny, as you, like, I don't know if you can tell, but that is like a huge sign of health for a lot of plants, but especially orchids. So I wanted just to show you guys things can go either really well or really badly. Yeah, but finally, oh wow, actually this is another really good example of stretching that I should show you really quick. This is called a lithrop. It's called it's a living rock. It looks like this. It's not supposed to be stretched up this much. That means it's not getting enough light either, so we'll have to remedy that. But anywho, finally, this is not a succulent, but I still wanted to show it off as part of my little seminar today. This is an amaryllis. It's actually starting to be on the decline now. It's got 4 flowers around it. I started out with 2. This was given to me just as a bulb, and I just planted it in here, and I didn't even know what it would look like at all, and this is what I got. And I mean, come on, this is pretty cool, right? So I just had to show off quick my amaryllis, and amaryllis is, on the other hand, I water this thing all the time and it doesn't seem to mind, so it's a little different than a succulent. But okay, everybody, it's starting to get dark outside, which is just sort of changing the lighting in this room, so I'll probably end this video just to avoid